Hashem's Basai Tiftach L'Pi Agitol Asacha. We're now on the 19th Perek of Shoftim, and this is one of the hardest prakim in all of Tanakh. The Bnei Israel have stooped as low as we possibly could go. It's such a horrible story that at first one could consider maybe it's just a mashal. Maybe this didn't actually really happen. And there are some Mefarshim who say that this is not to be taken on surface value, but rather these are just highlighted points to make the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is Vayehi Bayimim Hahem Umelech Ein B'Yisrael. What happens to a society when we don't have good leaders, when we don't follow in the right way, when we don't stand up and stand strong for what just happened in the last Perek with Pesel Micha, when people are not held to task, and society, our society, as the Or L'Goyim starts to unravel, we can unravel and we can reach the lowest proportions. As my daughter Sophie mentioned, these two stories, the story of Pesel Micha and the story of Pilegesh Begiva, are at the end of Shoftim to highlight. They didn't happen at the end, but to highlight the greatest truth. First of all, is that we don't want to say the bad in the beginning. We want to do chinuch purposes for the sake of education. We never start off in the bad. We always start off in the positive. That way, psychologically, someone wants to hear what you have to say. But also, the idea that the culmination of this going around, of having Shoftim, of having all of it, culminates in a strength-based model. But there is the potential for negativity, and we have to highlight, and we have to understand that we always have to be on guard so that we don't get to a place where there is Ein Melech Ein B'Yisrael, that there is no leadership and there's nothing that we're following to follow in the ways of Hashem. So without further ado, there was an Ish Levi, and he takes a Pilegesh in Beis Lechem in Yehuda. What is a Pilegesh? A Pilegesh is a wife that doesn't have a ksuba or kiddushin. And it actually is not as simple as I'm making it sound, but essentially there is some level of obviously of a physical relationship. The Torah does not look upon favorably on Pilegesh. Again, the Mefarshim argue as to if that's the case, how do we know that David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech obviously had many Pilagshos, and it's important to highlight that might be just for a king. A king is allowed to have a Pilegesh, while other regular Bnei Israel are not. And so what happens is that Vatizena alav Pilagsho, his Pilegesh does something wrong. Tizneh, did she have relations with another man? So the Mefarshim don't say that actually happened because of how the rest of the story is going to play out. But here's a very important message. Batizena alav Pilagsho, there's some Mefarshim say that there was a fly in his soup, and he blamed it on her. Others say that she didn't shave appropriately in all the appropriate places and it bothered him tremendously. But both of those things highlight a very important message. They're small deals. And in life, in all of our relationships, it is the small deals that we have to look out for, because if we make them into something larger than they are, as what we're going to see here, then they take on a life of its own and to really horrible proportions. And so it is important that the way that we handle the shalom in our homes and the shalom with our children is to do things in a way that is not out of proportion. And we should try the hardest that we can to really safeguard that small deals are considered small deals and they don't grow and they don't take on a life of their own. Because in here, it took on really disastrous proportions. Now, because the Bnei Israel did not argue and fight over what happens with Pesel Micha? Well, what happens with Pesel Micha is obviously Avodah Zarah, but what happens when Ein Melech B'Yisrael, when there's no king, there are three things that happen. Either what we're going to have here, which is Gilui Arayos, inappropriate relations. We had in the last story with Pesel Micha, with Avodah Zarah, and we also had with them with Laish, with Dan, and Shvichas Damim, murder. So without having said that, those are the big deals, right? Now, those big deals didn't come from nowhere. So we have to highlight that the small deals ultimately will turn into big deals if you don't go and make sure that your reactions meet the situation. So she does something wrong, a small deal, and what happens is that they part, and she stays in her parents' house for 4 months over a fly in the soup. Finally, her husband goes out and decides, you know what, I've got to go get her back. And he goes to the house, and the young woman's father sees him, invites him really nicely to the home, and for many days, he's trying to get his wife to come back, and the father-in-law is wooing him, and let me give you something to eat, let's be together, let's talk together, why don't you stay overnight, enjoy yourself, and keeps urging him to stay longer and longer and longer. Now, that is pretty much the epitome of Hakanas Orchim, but he's not feeling comfortable with it because he has no patience and he just wants to get it together. Like he clearly is there for his own personal reasons. And so you see there's a dichotomy, a father-in-law that's trying to do whatever he can to allow the process to unfold, to get close to him, that there should be a relationship. And this man is not having anything of it. He just wants to leave. He wants to take his woman with him. And he is having pleasure in this house, but ultimately, clearly, he's not really relating to his father-in-law, and we don't really hear about all of the efforts that he puts into trying to woo the Pilegesh back. In any event, finally, he gets what he wants, and he takes his Pilegesh. We don't know her name. We don't know anything about her, because clearly, it's not a relationship that is anything to really connect to, right? It's a Pilegesh, and there's no name, and there's no identifiable information, and there's no relationship building that happens that we can see or that we can hear. And so clearly he's not treating this Pilegesh very well. And the father, who loves his daughter and who seemingly is trying so hard to have a relationship with this man, says, no, you know what? You shouldn't leave so late. Like, it's already late. I know you want to leave, and I know you're eager to get out, but just spend more time here. Come on, enjoy yourselves. You could always go out tomorrow. And the man refuses. No way, I'm leaving now. And he sets out, and he starts to travel, and he has this Pilegesh with him and some donkeys, and they get close to the Yevusi, and his attendant says to him, I don't think we should go anymore. I think we should go to the Yevusis and spend the night there. And the man says, no. I would never go to where it's not Bnei Israel, right? You're Nachri? No way. I'm going to continue to go to Gibeah. And so the man says, okay. So they go, and he says, okay, we'll either try Gibeah or Ramah, and they travel on, and they get to Gibeah, which is in the portion of Binyamin. And when they turn there and they want to spend the night, they sit down right in the middle, thinking, okay, you know what he said, that I don't want to spend any time with non-Jews, because obviously the Jewish people would treat me much better. And he's sitting in the middle of the place, and not one person, no one is inviting him in. There's no Hachnasas Orchim. There's nothing. And he notices this old man, a man perhaps who has a different perspective and mentality, old. And that man says, Ana Tzelich Uma'ayin Tavo. Where are you from and where are you going? Isn't that the biggest mussar in life? To think about, what are your priorities? What are you up to? And he says, no, we're traveling from Beis Lechem and from the Har Ephraim, and I'm here. That's where I live, and I made the journey from Beis Lechem of Yehuda, and now I'm on my way to Beis Hashem, and no one's asked me to come inside. And the man says, no, don't worry, come with me. I have for your donkeys, I have bread, I have wine for you, and for, Amasecha, from your, your woman maid servant, and for your na'ar, and everyone, just like, it's good. I'll be able to take care of you, and just rest easy. Shalom lach, not to worry. It's all going to be okay. So he takes him into the house. He gives for the donkeys. He gives v'rachatu raglechem b'yachlu v'ishtu. Clearly, this guy has really good hachnasas orchim, and it's reminiscent almost of what happens with Avram Avinu. He brings in the malachim, he washes their feet, he gives them to eat, and everything is good, except that the townspeople come and they surround the house, just like also with Avram Avinu. But this time, it's reminiscent of what happened in Sodom with Lot. And what's happening is that they surround the house, they pound on the door, and they tell the old man, Ha'isha Baal Habayis Hazakin. This is how you speak to old people, by the way. Not so cool either. Hotzeis Ha'ish. Bring this man out, Binatenu, so that we can rape him. Wow. Okay, so this really is very harsh and very reminiscent of what happened in Sodom. So the problem is, what happened with Sodom? Sodom was completely destroyed. These people are acting exactly in accordance or similar to what happened to Sodom. And the end of the story is not that, the whole place is completely destroyed. So what is going on here? Well, in fact, the man says, he says, please, my friends, again, alachai, I'm one of you. You're my brother, right? So we're brothers here. And don't do this. Don't do this. Just because you want it doesn't mean you take it. That's not how we work. He's of the old school of following hachnasas orchim, of Torah, of mitzvos, of treating everybody achim anachnu, right? We're brothers. And he says, don't do this. He's my guest. We believe in guests. This is, you can't do this. I don't care how far all of you have fallen. This is not what we're going to do. But then, he then does something very, very unorthodox. And he says, you can have my daughter who's a virgin, and you could take this pilegesh, and good, do it like, it's fine. You can take that and take them instead. But just don't do this to this man. But the man, the people wouldn't listen. They didn't want that. They want what they want, right? And so instead, the man takes his pilegesh and pushes her out the door, and they rape her all night long. And in the morning, they let her come back in. Again, what is this highlighting? What does this mean? Could it mean that again, look how low society has fallen? Or is this all a metaphor that when you are supposed to care about someone and protect them and be in a relationship with them, and then you just abuse them, you don't listen to them, you throw them aside to any nation, you allow for the kedusha of what it means to be the Bnei Yisrael go to other nations, right? The kedusha of the Torah, of mitzvos, and you allow it to just be broken by other nations. But irrespective, back to our story. So in the morning, the woman comes crawling back. It's just when there's just a little bit of light, and she collapses at the entrance where her husband, who had thrown her out, really was. And her husband wakes up in the morning. He was sleeping all night while she was being raped. How could this happen? How could it be that there's such a disconnect? There's no kindness. Okay, maybe there are no feelings, but beyond that, what about the human feeling? Someone's being tortured, someone's being in pain. At the very least, if you can't do anything about it because you're in danger too, then cry in the corner. Daven, do something. But he does nothing of the sort. It's as though he's just callous. He has no feelings. There's nothing inside of him. Also, Michael Horowitz mentions, on just a short time ago, when there was what happened on October 7th, there's a lot of the same sort of imagery of women being abused and thrown and just absolutely disregarded. But so he gets up in the morning, he opens up the door, he sees his Pelega. She was lying at the entrance and with her hands like literally just all hunched over. And he says to her, Kumi, get up, Benelcha, we're going to go. And she doesn't answer because she's dead. And so he takes her on the donkey and he starts to go home. Now, what is happening here? Is he getting a message? What could be happening? But Vayilech L'Mkomo, he's going to start to figure out get back to his home, maybe get back to what it means to actually be normal. But what he does, again, he takes a ma'acheles, he takes a knife. Now this ma'acheles, the way it could be a sakin, but ma'acheles is again referencing to Avram Avinu, that Avram Avinu took the ma'acheles for that kedah. He took it for the right reasons, that there was something good that was happening, so that he could show and highlight the sacrifice that we do to Hashem for Hashem's sake. And here, he takes the machalas, he takes his pilagesh, and he cuts her up into 12 pieces. And he sends a piece to all of the Shvatim. Some say that he definitely didn't send to Binyamin because it happened in Binyamin. And some say he dafka, for sure he sent it to Binyamin. And everyone, vaya kol haro'eh, anyone who would see that, va'amar lo neheyeh, never such a thing has ever happened. V'lo nir'asa kazos umiyom alos b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim ad yom hazeh. So never has such a thing ever happened among Bnei Israel when they came out of Mitzrayim until this day. And it's very important that we remember and we understand and we highlight that without a sense of purpose and Yiras Hashem and Avas Hashem, without a relationship with Hashem that we follow in the mitzvahs and we have leaders, look how society can fall. What's interesting is that never such a thing has happened from the time the Bnei Yisrael came out of Mitzrayim. But remember, why did Hashem take us out of Mitzrayim? He took us out of Mitzrayim because we were on the lowest level, the Memtet Shar of Tumah. And he realized you can't go any lower. Now, I don't know if that was from experience of what was happening around in Egypt, but I can just imagine that at that time, he took them out, and this is the time that they went back down. I can't even think about how there could be less of a level than the Bnei Israel are on than the people of Binyamin and what they're on. And what's really a very interesting dichotomy is that Sheva Binyamin was a Sheva that begged and pleaded that they wanted the Beis HaMikdash to be in their land. These are good people. These are Binyamin, who was Shalom, who was the highest level of Shlemus, beloved son. Everyone tried to protect him. And so it's a little bit more just pathetic that they would stoop to this level, that they have no regard for other people. They have no regard for life. They have no regard for anything lawful. It's all about the pleasure principle, and the types of pleasures and the degree to which they have fallen is just so incredibly low. And so for that reason, this Perek is one of the hardest prakim, because we just can't even imagine that people would stoop to this level. But it is specifically on this horrible level that we can take pause and recognize, that we have to be so careful to not to let the little things bother, because look at the detrimental effects of small things becoming big deals. Second is the idea that Hashem says, if you're not going to care about me, right, in the last parak with Avodah Zarah, then you're obviously not going to care about each other, because one connects to each other. You can't be the best Jew just to Hashem and the worst Jew to people. You can't be the best Jew to people and the worst and the worst Judah Hashem. They go hand in hand. We've got Bein Adam Makom, between man and Hashem, and Bein Adam L'Chaviro, and all of that needs to be safeguarded. And it's just a really sorry state of affairs when people can't find kindness and goodness in their hearts to embrace each other, as well as obviously to embrace the Torah HaKadosha, the Torah that gives us the values of how to walk in the ways of Hashem. This was certainly not it, and really a blemish in Jewish history.